That's not really the way that I planned on starting that out. I thought it was going to go perfectly smooth.
Welcome back to Walnut Springs. As you guys know, in the last video, I had a pretty big storm roll through, and unfortunately, it took out one of our big walnut trees. Well, at least half of it. But fortunately, it left us with a little bit of a present. This gigantic log that I want to make into some killer feature here on the trail. Let's get to it. In order to make this a nice little log ride, what I needed to do was cut some slits across it and then take my chainsaw and make a mill style cut, giving it a smooth riding surface. The next step that I'll have to do is to remove all the bark. This will help prevent insects from getting underneath the bark and causing it to rot away faster than what Mother Nature would intend. Fortunately, I had this really crazy tool that I think is used for landscaping, but it works really well for stripping the bark off. Look at it go! So cool! Who knew? Now that I've got all this bark stripped off of it, I need to find a way to pull this thing into the woods where I want it to be. Fortunately, the old John Deere came into play. Look at this sucker. I can't believe that little lawnmower can pull this gigantic log. Well, into the woods we go. Now that the log is in the woods, I need a place to put it. And you guys might recognize this place as it was one of the first builds I did on Walnut Springs. This was the log jump. And yeah, time has wore it down and it's time to replace it. So let's tear this down and move the log in place.
All right, so I got that taken care of. I need to move this thing over to here, but I want to actually do some more work on this.
Now I'm ready to move the log into place, but this sucker is heavy. As I struggled with it for quite some time, I decided I should probably go get my winch.
Okay, this thing's gonna kill me, but we're gonna see if my hand winch can actually pull this. I think it will, but it's just gonna be a slow process.
Man, that thing helped out a lot. I was able to move that log fairly fast. Now I'm ready to put it into its final position, but I didn't want it to set directly on the dirt, so I decided to bury some rocks at each point that the log would actually touch the ground. I wasn't really worried about this moving around as this log is so heavy, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Now, that'll prevent the wood from actually sitting on the dirt. So hopefully when the soil is wet, I would think that that would rot the wood. So with it up on rocks like this, I think it should be pretty good. I don't know. I'm just guessing at this whole thing. Let's just see how stable this is before I anchor anything into place. And this is just with the log sitting on the rocks. All right, this is gonna be great.
Now that the log is secure in place, I need to start on the entry point of the log. And instead of putting dirt right up against the log, I went and found another huge rock. Kind of like what I did with the gap up ladder bridge, but this time we're gonna ride up on this instead of down on it. I filled in all the nooks and crannies with little bitty rocks and held it in place. After that, I'm ready to start on the drop. I went and found some nice logs that came from the tree that fell down that'll be perfect for supports. All I gotta do is get them over there and start digging the hole. Let's get that done.
Well, I found out that if rocks were worth a lot of money, I would be wealthy just from digging this hole.
Now that I'm finally done digging that hole and digging out all those rocks, I can put the posts in place. I'll temporarily brace them with the boards that I'll use for the drop. This will hold them nice and level and straight up and down, and that way I can fill it in with dirt and get them stable. Let's get that done. I think this will work pretty good. As it rains, that soil will compact down, holding those poles even tighter. Now on to the next step. I need to notch the log, so these 2x4s will sit flush down in there. That way, whenever you enter the log ride, it's a nice smooth transition.
Well, my big saw won't start. I think it needs a new spark plug. There's no spark coming out of it, so all I've got left is my electric pole saw. So I made it as short as I can. I'm gonna see if I can cut these notches with it. Otherwise, I'll have to get a spark plug for my bigger chainsaw.
As usual, this little Cobalt pole saw really surprised me. I do wish I could have used my bigger saw, but I need to get that figured out. The next step was to chisel out the area that I cut, and I just took this breaker bar and kind of used it as a gigantic chisel, and it worked really, really well. Next, after I get these chiseled out, let's just see if those boards fit in place. Perfect. Now that we've got this anchored in, let's make sure that I calculated the right number of slats that are needed for this drop. Alright, so my calculation was right. I have the correct number of slats. That's perfect. Now I just need to cut the posts, and of course, I've got to use my little Cobalt again to do a job it's not really designed for. But this thing is a little tiny beast, and it does the job perfectly.
I wanted to put a brace in here, so I just had a log already cut, so I buried it down in the ground about 6-7 inches, and then put a 2x4 here.
Now that the drop is fully supported, let's go ahead and get these spaced out and screwed in. There's a lot of them to do, so let's fast forward through this. Now I wanted to add one more type of support. These little cross beams, just like I added to the gap up ladder bridge and box jump and ride, not only help it from moving side to side, they also look really cool. Now that the drop is built, I want to do the roll part. And to do that, I went around and found another giant rock. This time, I'm going to need a couple of them. But I'll put this in place, and in theory, you should be able to just ride off of this off the side of the log. But we'll just have to see how that actually works.
All right, I'm too excited about this part. Well, that too, the drop. But I haven't ridden this log at all since I cut it, so I'm really kind of nervous about it. But I'm gonna go ahead and try to ride this, see how it goes, and I might do the drop before I finish the landing. So let's go get our bike. Okay, so it's starting to rain. I'm just gonna give this a shot, see what happens. I don't know how long I can be out here, but let's go before it gets too wet. Whoa, that is skinny. That turn? I don't know that that's even possible. Oh man. Okay, got it. Oh, it's so intimidating. Ooh, you see my back tire? Well, I made it up on the drop. Man, I can make it up on that. That's a derailer killer, man.
After taking the night to think about it, I decided, yeah, I need to add something to this. Otherwise, someone's gonna lose a derailleur. So I had these giant chunks of cedar that I think will be perfect.
Okay, so I cut this piece of cedar to the shape of this, the log, angled it a little bit so it would sit flush. Now I just need to chip away some of this excess bark that I have on here, but it'll look something like this. And then I would like to cut a little piece that goes right here. That way when you come up, you can aim right for this. You can keep your speed as you go up off the drop, or you can have a little bit more of kind of time to think about exiting off the roll. So. Okay, I think I got most of the boards cut, except for this little bitty end piece down here. I'm gonna go ahead and try to screw these into place, and then I've got to make the little mounts that go underneath it with that cedar board right there. So let's get that part done. It's looking good so far. All right, I cut a whole bunch of these little blocks that I'm going to use to place underneath here to make this extra stable.
Adding these little cedar blocks really made it look awesome, and I think it's going to really help with the stability. But there's really only one way to find out, and that's to test it.
Nice!
That really worked. Now for the test ride.
Oh! Dang! I did not get unclipped for that. Ah! Whew. Well, that was interesting. All right. I think everything is all right. That probably looked like in slow motion because it sure felt like slow motion. That's not really the way that I planned on starting that out. I thought it was going to go perfectly smooth. Yeah! I did it!
After successfully completing the roll-off several times, I'm ready to build the landing for the drop. So I gathered up a lot of rocks and the ones that came out of the hole from where the posts were dug and started building away. And I think it turned out pretty good in the end. think this is one of the best looking landings I've ever made. Now, to give it a test run. Now that the drop is working well, I want to make it look a little bit cooler. I want to taper this. I want to make it the width of the log as you enter it, and then 2 feet as you exit it, kind of giving it this really cool looking funnel look. With this final cut, this project will be complete. So, with that said, let me introduce you to Walnut Springs' latest feature, drop and roll. Can't even express how excited I am to have this here at Walnut Springs. I've been wanting to build a drop like this for quite a while, and with the gift that the tree left us by falling down and turning it into a log ride, along with the rocks and the ladder bridge, I think it's almost like a piece of art. I am super excited about it. Let me know what you guys think of it. Leave a comment below. And while you're at it, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. It really helps out my channel. And as always, get out there, run, bike, build, and just have fun. We'll see you in the next one.